We continue in chapter 14 to conclude the chapter. The very beginning of Tanya started with Mashbim Moisei Tia Tzadik Ve'al Tia Rasha. We started off that our soul, when it comes into this world, it's given an oath. It's administered an oath. What's that oath? Meaning, what does it mean you're given an oath? It means you're given your soul is satiated with the capacity to fulfill its mission when it comes down here. What is that? That you should be righteous, but not to be wicked. Why would we have a double language? If you're going to be righteous already, well, then obviously you're not going to be wicked. So why is it necessary to have the two terms? The oath is to be righteous. Finished. That's enough. But no, as we have learned, the Beinoni is not capable of becoming righteous. If that's all they are, is a Beinoni, right? They're not capable. They don't have the soul to be that. Job said, you created the righteous. God created people with a unique soul to be righteous. 99.99999% of the population is not created that way. So what can they be? A Beinoni. What's a Beinoni? Every moment of their life, owning their life to such a degree that they can see that this is connecting or disconnecting. That's how they make the judgment. That's the rank and file, or the simple bottom line of the Beinoni. Seeing every moment in life is a potential to connect or a potential to disconnect from our divine source, from God, and sees everything that way. So now we understand why it's necessary to make that's not enough to say, be righteous. That the soul is given the power to be righteous. Because you're going to be righteous. So at least don't be a Rasha. Don't be wicked. Meaning, be a Beinoni. Be a Beinoni. But then, of course, what is the Beinoni? The person who has complete freedom of choice at every moment in their behavior of thought, speech, and action to be connected and not to be disconnected through every thought, speech, and action that they engage in. Because that is something that the Beinoni has the capability, not that which is given over to the heart. Even when it comes to study of Torah and not wasting time, that's given over. But nevertheless, the oath is given to be righteous. Why would an oath be given to somebody who doesn't have that capability? As I just said, 99.999% of humanity are not going to be righteous. Very few. 18,000 righteous people throughout all of history. The Talmud tells us. We learned that previously in it was chapter 1. Yeah. Remember, the righteous love only God, and anything that is the opposite of the love of God, they abhor. Anything that is self-directed, is not God-directed, they abhor that. That's not something they can get capable of. So then why are we given an oath, meaning our soul is given the empowerment, the power that we can come into this world, and the first thing we're said is, tzaddik, be righteous. Yeah, but I'm not a righteous person. I don't have the soul of a righteous person. Says the Alter Rebbe, we were given that because we should take time to meditate, to become like the righteous, even though we won't be righteous. Meaning that the righteous delight in God, So meditate upon delighting in God and actually abhorring that which is the opposite. That to think about loathing in worldly pleasures as an end in themselves, not as an end in themselves, right? Not as a means to an end, right? Means to a higher end. That's divine, but as an end in themselves. And it gives advice on how you can do that. So if you think, I'm going to give the second example first of food, right? Which is a big challenge for all of us, right? Me included. Enjoying your food, right? So enjoying food as an end in itself, the righteous don't do. So the Beinoni will then think about and meditate upon food. That look what ends up with food when you see, it's enticing. Beautiful plate, the way it's set up, and a nice, beautiful food that is, looks, enjoyable. We're drawn by that. I'm drawn by that, right? So if you meditate and think about that food, if you left it out long enough, what's going to happen? It's going to become waste. It's going to become it's going to be refuse. Moldy. Worms, perhaps. Think about that. That food that looks so delicious and is drawing you to enjoy it for its own pleasure as an end in itself, all of a sudden that pleasure is taken away. Likewise, when it comes to sexuality, that there's a desire for sexuality for an end in itself. In other words, for your own pleasure. And here specifically for a man it's speaking about. Right? That a man is drawn to a woman. And here we're talking about even in a permissible situation, right? And before I'm going to explain this, just that something I've spoken about, chapter 1, actually, no, in chapter 2 we spoke about it, that relationships between husband and wife, ultimately the husband is about giving the pleasure rather than receiving the pleasure. That's the mitzvah. The nature of a man is to seek self-gratification sexually. The mitzvah is to give it. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't an enjoyment, but you're seeking to give the pleasure rather than take the pleasure. That is the mitzvah. Human nature is the opposite. So when you will meditate then upon a woman and this is, the sages in the Talmud say, if you think about this, and it will take away the lust, right? Just seeking for your own self pleasure, and therefore in a relationship you will be focused more about giving the pleasure than just seeking the pleasure. Excuse me and it's not meant to be derogatory to a woman. I want to make sure that that's very clear. It's not meant to be derogatory. It's meant that if a person is lusting, that this is a way that you can take away the lust from the sexual desire. If you think about a woman, and the menstrual cycle and menstruating, which is natural and nothing wrong with it, but that's not something enticing. If you think about a woman and her beauty, right, then that's enticing. Well, that's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. But if you think about the menstrual cycle, for example, that's not exactly enticing. And that's the point over here, that you would think about that, so then you will not be drawn by your lust, and that will mitigate the lust in the Beinoni we're talking about, right? And give you then the capability of having relations in the healthy way. But here the point of it is to get us to a point, for the Beinoni at least, get to the point where, the natural pleasures of life, of sexuality and food, that you, like the righteous, come to a point, not like that you're given the oath to be righteous, so it means that you should make the effort to at least abhor the pleasures of life as an end in themselves. And conversely, you should train yourself to delight and rejoice in God by reflecting and thinking about your relationship with God, the greatness of God, what God's done for you, for me, right? Wow. That's going to give me to rejoice in Him. Now, nevertheless, now you're not going to become righteous through this, but you're upholding at least the oath it's given to be righteous by emulating the righteous at least as best as you can. And maybe it'll become second nature, it's not going to become, right, and so on. Or, concludes the Alter Rebbe, that by doing this, you might get a righteous person's soul that will be connected to your soul and sort of give something from their soul to you that will bring you to another higher level of connection with God that you wouldn't have on your own. And this is what the verse says: rejoice, O righteous tzaddikim in God. And it's written in plural because it means that the righteous have the capability of connecting with another who is as a Beinoni, to give something of their soul that they will, what they can't achieve on their own, through the righteous, they somehow get connected and get part of that righteous soul in them, and therefore can delight in God and abhor anything that is as an end in itself that is disconnected from God. And that concludes the 14th chapter. Extremely powerful. So what do we have here? Connect, disconnect. That's just, if we come away with that idea and go through our day, that we have times that we have a challenge, and then question ourselves, is this connecting me or disconnecting me from my truth? What's my truth? Then I'm capable of becoming a Beinoni. Alter Rebbe believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. That we can. This is something everyone can be. How? By thinking this throughout our day. Now, what we've learned here is very lofty. If today, as a Beinoni in training, I would suggest everybody try once a day to start with, to think this way. Disconnecting or disconnecting. When a thought comes up, you wanted to say something, take a moment and be honest with yourself. And you're going to see that we start entertaining this in our minds. The more we entertain this, the more we make this a reality, different people we're going to be. We're going to live differently. We're going to be whole. We're going to be complete. We're going to be amazing. Okay. Alice has a question. Can we really be a Beinoni without knowing well the 613 mitzvahs? You're right. We need to learn the mitzvahs, right? Without that, if we don't learn Torah and know how to fulfill God's will, then you're right. We're not going to be a Beinoni. We might not know the things that we need to know. And yes, absolutely correct, Alice. Live show. Yes. That's why we got to learn Rambam too. Mm-hmm. So even though, says Andrew in New Jersey, The heart has a desire for lust and physical pleasure. If for a moment we divert our attention from it by saying then the moment that I'm not going to succumb, is that a Beinoni in training? Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember, the Beinoni though, yes, it's not succumbing to that heart's desire. Right? Yeah, absolutely. That's a Beinoni. I mean, that's a Beinoni in training. Beinoni is someone who does it all the time, right? Davida, when a soul is reincarnated, does the soul come back down as a Rasha or a BIT that were a previous life? Well, probably doesn't come back as a tzaddik, but it comes back reincarnated as, you know, um, whatever it is. I don't know. Okay, it comes back whatever it needs to fulfill. So, Andrew, another question: does our love for God we only reach during prayer or at the peak moment of not giving in to the evil inclinations of not being able to sustain our love of God on the permanent basis mean our animal soul can never be refined? No, it's not black and white. Being a tzaddik is black and white. A complete tzaddik that you've transformed entirely your animal soul. But there's many levels. Of a Beinoni, the Alter Rebbe said there was 150 levels of a Beinoni. Not here, but elsewhere. 150 levels. That's of a Beinoni. So Beinoni in training, there's many levels. So there's different levels of self-refinement of the animal soul. Right? There's like lustful for things that are prohibited, lustful for things that are permitted. That's one huge distinction. Within permitted, there can be very nuanced. Uh, um, Sometimes you'll see as you grow in your connection to Hashem, in your avodah, in your divine service, you'll see how it gets so nuanced that a thought comes to you. So a negative thought about another, like, oh, this person is, negative, but then it can be very nuanced. It may not be so obvious, the negativity that you're thinking, and that's a more profound level. Yeah, very good, Andrew. Thank you. Deborah, is being two-faced considered a Rasha action? Absolutely. Serving pork to a Jew is, yeah, no good. No good. Leah, as a Beinoni in training, I try to be more aware and connected every moment. My question is, sitting and reading a fiction novel, is that considered wasting time and therefore not connecting? Leah, TRC question, not for here. Excellent question. That's an excellent question. TRC coming up. TRC is the Tanya Rabbi community. You can go to tanyarabbi.com/TRC to find out more about it, where we take everything we're learning here and personalizing it, making it practical. Even though a lot of here, what we learned is very practical, but we take it to another dimension, and it's much more intimate, personal setting, and very powerful. Sundays at 8, every other Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York, Montreal time. I invite you all to try. Many of you are part of it, and many of you would definitely gain immensely. Ahuva, does the concept of Beinoni apply to non-Jews? To their godly soul is stated against the animal soul's stated case. So that's as I mentioned, the Alter Rebbe is speaking to Jews, but the application is not only for Jewish people. So the idea of a Beinoni it is possible for a non-Jew, eating pork or not eating pork is not an issue for a non-Jew because it's not a commandment for them, for example. But to do right from wrong, so there is the possibility of a non-Jew with the nefesh maskelis, with their soul, um, with their soul, that they can do right from wrong all the time. Absolutely. We learned that in chapter 12, that Moyach Shalat al-Lev, that the mind has dominion over the heart, and you can do the exact opposite of what your heart's feelings are, is something that is of the mind and is not based on soul. I mean, in other words, divine soul. So that's something that a non-Jew has, as a Jew has, and therefore, yes, they can do by virtue of the intelligent soul that we have, versus that intelligent soul can dominate the animal soul's lustful desires. Yes, very good question.
I have a question as well, Rabbi.
Go ahead, Vilma.
So all this is about self-character refinement, not about other people,
right? Exactly.
All the Torah really is about self as well. Like, it talks to us personally in our lives, at least to me.
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, there is responsibilities we have towards others, but yeah, what we're learning here is about our refinement. Exactly.
There was something that is in the actual notes that says that it is God who decides about, granting that tzaddik level to the Beinoni. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what Job said, that God creates the righteous, meaning that I'm not going to become righteous. Halavai Beinoni, so be it that I should become a Beinoni. But God creates the righteous with a unique soul because they have a unique purpose that they need to fulfill. That's right. So will not. Exactly.
So it's a level that is attained and then God grants it? Is that how we understand it?
No, it's a potential that a person has that they have to attain. So it's not like God created the righteous that they are born and they're righteous and freedom of choice was taken away from them. No, they have freedom of choice. They don't have to become righteous, but they have the capacity to become righteous. We don't have that capacity, or at least I don't have it.
Thank you for explaining.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. All right, folks. Amazing. All right. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad Zich and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing day. Thank you for joining. Rambam coming right up.